So yeah, this talk is about procrastinating pretty much, and what my life turned out to be when I joined Red Hat and started working from home and stopped going to the office every single day. So this is me, I'm Flopper87 on Twitter, and you can find all my information there. I work for Red Hat, I already said this, and I'm part of the RDO community. Some other things about me, I love mentoring, so I'm part of the Google Summer of Code program and the outreach program for women. As a mentor, I participate there. And I'm a contributor of Rust language, member of the MongoDB Masters team, public speaker, and I love physics and philosophy. So when you stop going to the office and because you joined a company that allows you to work from home, there are many things that you realize when you stop doing that. One of those things is that all the time that you spent and wasted commuting to your office and you spent on traffic, trains, or whatever you were used to take when you went to the office, it's now yours. You can do something with it. And as soon as you start working remotely, the first thing you do is sleeping. And you think that you have a lot of time in your hands and you can wake up right when you have to start working. And if your working hours are from 9 to 5, you will probably wake up 5 before 9. And you will grab a cup of coffee and you will sit in front of your laptop and you will start working and you will be still sleeping. But this is amazing. This is one of the first things that you realize when you start working remotely. That you have more time in your hands, but you have to do something with it. The other thing that you realize is that you will start working more. It doesn't matter how hard you try. You will keep working and working unless you have a really good discipline and you know how to stop yourself from working. And this is obviously based on the fact that most of the remote workers work from home, unless you rent an office and you know when you have to leave the office and head to your home and stop working. But if you work from home and you have your office in your place, you will probably work more and more and more, unless you know how to stop yourself. And the other thing that you will definitely realize is that time zones suck. And this is very related to the fact that most of the people working remotely have to work with teams that are not in the same time zone. In my case, I'm the only one in Europe. Everyone else is in the US, which means that we have at least 5 hours in between. I mean, I'm 5 hours ahead of them. And luckily enough, they're all in the East Coast. But I have had to work with people that was in the West Coast, and that's just really painful. So you will hate time zones a lot. You will hate them, but you will also start using them in your favorites. What that means is that when people in the US is expecting something from me, I know that when I wake up, they will still be sleeping, so I still have time to do those things. So when they wake up, I will probably have them done, which is something they don't have, because when I wake up, I will have to wait for them to do something. So I will have to wait for them to wake up, and probably we will be able to talk and get the things that we have to do done. So you will have this kind of weird hate and love relationship with time zones. In my case, I hate them way more than what I love them. But this is probably in a case-by-case basis. So, with all that being said, what that boils down to is that you have more time in your hands, and you have to know how to spend that time. You have to do something perhaps useful, hopefully useful with that time. And I was really amazed. I was working on the slides early today, 2 weeks ago, and and I was really amazed at how much I can procrastinate during the day. I'm really amazed that I actually get things done during the day. The thing is that what you have to know is how to procrastinate in a way that is actually useful for you, for your work, for the company you work at. And instead of just procrastinating and wasting your time and by reading stuff on the internet that don't make sense at all. So this is what this talk is about. It's about how to procrastinate in a useful way so that you won't waste your whole time reading things that are actually not useful for you nor for your company. So that's why there's no outline here. It's all about procrastinating. So, the first thing, Hacker News is Jersey Shore for hackers. I mean, Hacker News has nothing useful in there, and this is probably my very personal opinion, but every time I open Hacker News and I try to find something that is actually useful for me, that will actually teach me something, I cannot find anything. And most of the things that I find on Hacker News are just gossip. You find people trolling to each other, and you find people talking bad things about other companies. So when it comes to choose the things that you want to read on internet and the sources of information for you and your own knowledge, I would highly recommend to avoid places where you find people trolling, flaming about things, and posting stuff that are not related to your work. What that means is that in Hacker News, there's no real moderation. There's some moderation in terms of diversity and people hating each other, but there's no moderation in terms of topics. So you can probably go to Hacker News and you will find some article that is actually not related to hacking, right? So a probably good source of procrastination is Reddit. In Reddit, you have subreddits, and those subreddits are moderated by people that care about that specific topic. So when you go to some subreddit, you are sure that you will find useful information there, or at least information that is actually related to the Reddit that you want to read. Other things that you can actually do to read something on the internet is having blog roles and blogs that you love, and you can have feed aggregators and wake up in the morning and go through them and find if something useful was posted when you were sleeping. Take long breaks. Whenever you're working, stop doing what you're doing. Do this many times per day. Get your hands out of your keyboard. Stand up. Go to your coffee machine. Go to your preferred bar that is nearby. Sit down somewhere, go to your garden, watch the mountains, see, I don't know, whatever, but stop working, take long breaks. And I mean this is something that I actually miss a lot from being in the office. And when I was at the office, I didn't have coffee breaks. What I had were coffee machine conversations. So basically, I stopped working, I called everyone, and we would all go to the coffee machine, stand there for half an hour, perhaps an hour or two, and we would just talk. Either hacky things or life or whatever, but we would just talk. And that was our break. We really wanted that. We really loved that. And that's something I actually miss. I take long breaks. I love coffee. But since I work remotely and I work from my place, I end up talking to myself, and that's very weird. So you don't want to know what I actually talk to myself. But do something. Just take breaks. Go drink coffee, walk around, take a long walk, and then come back home and keep working. That's refreshing. That will help your mind stop thinking about whatever you're doing, and it will help you out when you are facing issues and when you have to figure out how to do things. Write new posts. Probably you have a blog and you have abandoned it. You haven't written anything in months, years. So do something with it. Stop doing whatever you're doing that is related to your work and write a blog post. Maybe your company doesn't actually care about what you're writing in your blog post, but your blog post may be related to what you are actually doing in your company. So there's some win-win situation there. There's some benefit from your company. But even if you don't write anything related to your work, that's also useful. It will help you out to figure out ways to express whatever you're thinking, which is also useful when you have to work with people that are not in the same office, because you have to use your words, you have to express yourself, you have to make sure that they understand what you want to tell them, right? They have to understand whatever you are thinking, so you have to be an expert at explaining and then making your points. So stop whatever you're doing, write a blog post, read it, and move on and keep working. It's also very useful to read posts from other people. So it's very important to have a set of blogs that you love that you will read in a daily basis, at least in a weekly basis. Remote working, it's all about priorities. And this is something that, in my case, I had to learn how to do. When I worked in the office, we had all project managers and people taking care of all priorities and talking to customers, and they would come to you and they would say every single day in the stand-up meeting, they would say, like, you have to work on this today and you better get it done. When I started working remotely, it was more like, dude, there's a list of bugs there, make sure you make it shorter at some point during the week, but you have to figure out what you want to do first, right? There are a bunch of bugs, there are a bunch of new features that you should probably start working on, but you don't know where to start, what feature to work on to begin with. It's all about priorities. So a good way to procrastinate and not doing actual work is going through all the stuff that you have in your hands and learning how to prioritize them. Which ones would be useful for your company or the company you're working for, and which ones are useful for you, which ones are useful for the users of your product or whatever service you're selling, and what features are actually not useful at all. And it's not easy. Well, at least it wasn't that easy for me. I was more like, give me something, I want to hack on it, and then I had to stop and start prioritizing stuff. So there are many ways to prioritize things, but just make sure that they are not all to make your manager happy. You have to make your users happy. You have to make yourself happy. If you're not happy and you keep working the whole week on just stupid bug fixes and features that you don't care at all about, you will be unhappy at the very end of your week. So your weekend will start with you being unhappy, and that doesn't have to happen. You have to make sure that you are happy with whatever you're working on. And if you're not happy with the feature or whatever you're working on, you will lose interest in your work. You will lose interest in the topics you are currently working on, or that you probably were interested before. So make sure that you keep yourself balanced on that area. You have to, there are some very annoying and boring things that you will have to do because they will always be there, but there are also a whole bunch of stuff that are very cool and that you probably are more interested in. So make sure you keep yourself balanced there. Prioritize thinking about your manager, thinking about your users, but also thinking about yourself. Not all guides are meant for you. What that means is that there are many guides out there that explain how to be a remote worker. But let me start this by saying that there are more guides that explain how to be a freelance, which is not the same thing. Being a remote worker is not the same thing as being a freelance. Being a freelance means that you actually have a self-company, so you are your company, so you have to take care of all your bills and paying stuff and chasing customers and finding new customers and making sure that you actually are working on the things that they want, and you have a whole bunch of other things to take care of that are not real and that are not true when you are a remote worker. So to some extent, being a remote worker is easier than being a freelance because you at least have well, in the Italian reality, for example, you have a very well detailed contract that explains it and that makes you feel safe when it comes to working and time spent at work. So read a lot, spend some time there, procrastinate by reading guides that explain how to be a remote worker. But make sure you don't follow them all because you will just become crazy. Make sure you choose one, two, or three ways and methods to be a remote worker that you want to spend your time on. These are your best friends forever when you're a remote worker. Your telephone, your email, and IRC, or whatever channel chat you want to use. So spend time there. There's nothing wrong. When you were, in my case, when I was at the office, we basically tried to just use words and speak to each other. So we never used IRC channels, we never used chats to talk to each other. But when you're a remote worker, those are your best friends, and whoever you know is actually in there somehow. So use them. Spend some time talking to people. The fact that you are not right next to them, it doesn't mean that they are not your colleagues, that you don't have to share your thoughts, that you cannot share your experiences or whatever happens to you. So talk to them, spend some time sharing your information and your ideas with others. That's definitely a well-spent time, and something good will come out of there. You will meet them sometime at some point. You will be both at the same conference or at a company meeting or whatever, and you will meet them and you will feel that you actually know them. You won't have to introduce yourself just because they are not right next to you, because you already know them, because you talk to them every single day. So use those tools. Don't feel guilty about chatting the whole day with people that are not right next to you, because you are not wasting your time. You are making relationships with your colleagues, and that's good. Yeah, this is all good, right? So procrastination all the way, but make sure that you actually do something for your company, and make sure that you're following your emails and you're actually getting things done. There are companies that are very email based, and that's the Red Hat case. We have a lot of emails, and I really hate emails, but we have a lot of them. There are other companies that are more like phone oriented, so you will get calls every 5 minutes, and there are others that just don't care about it and try to find other ways to communicate. But make sure you get things done. So procrastination is good. Invest your time there. And I'm saying invest your time in procrastination. I'm not saying waste it in procrastination. Invest it. But make sure you get things done. So be disciplined. And I'm not saying be disciplined enough in a sense that you have to wake up every day at 9 a.m. in the morning and work until 6 p.m. o'clock. What I'm saying is that make sure you have a time that you feel comfortable working at during the day. So in my case, well, I'm kind of workaholic, so I'm not a good example. But make sure you have your best time. Some people prefer working during night. Some other people prefer working during the afternoon. Others prefer early morning. So make sure you find your perfect time. Be disciplined about it. Stop working when you have to stop working. Take breaks. But make sure you're disciplined about it. Procrastinate to some extent, but also do actual work and get things done. Don't be a hero. We've got plenty of those. And what I mean is, when you are a remote worker, you have to show yourself somehow. You have to show your manager that you are actually doing some work and that you are good at it, so that they will keep you around, and they will also give you some raise, and they will also promote you. But you have to do it somehow, and the best way to do it is by actually doing things. Getting stuff done, making the bug list shorter, and helping them out somehow, making customers happy, whatever. But don't be a hero. Take just few of those things and make sure you do them the right way. If you take many things, you will drop some balls, and you don't want to do that, because if you drop some balls, your manager will be unhappy, and if your manager is unhappy, everything goes bad. So you don't have to prove yourself to yourself. You don't have to prove yourself to your manager either. What you have to make sure is that you're actually getting things done and getting the right things done.
Do you rather have questions at the end or now?
Sure, go ahead.
So how would that be different if you were going to the office? I mean, this don't be a hero advice.
That's actually not different from going to the office. What's different is the way you feel about it. And when you're used to go to the office and you see your manager every day, and you somehow feel that he knows what you're doing. But when you start working remotely, you kind of feel like he doesn't know what I'm doing. And it really depends on managers, because there are some managers that want like daily based updates on what you're doing, and there are others that like write me an email every week and that's fine with me and I know what you're doing, right? But when you feel that you don't know what your manager thinks about you, you start like getting more things to work on, and that basically leads to burning out, and you don't want to burn out. So what changes is the way you feel about it, and not the actual fact that you don't have to be a hero at all. Just to finish this is, when your manager comes to you and says like, there's a whole bunch of bugs that you should be working on, among those bugs there will be a lot of low-hanging fruits that you could be working on. Low-hanging fruits means very simple bugs that you could fix, like typos, like instead of throwing a warning, you should throw an error, and instead of returning true, you should return false. Those bugs are like, programmingly speaking, those bugs are really easy to fix. So you just have a patch, like it's one line patch, and you are done. So if you want to impress your manager, don't just take low-hanging fruits and like, hey, I fixed 150 bugs last week. And when your manager goes to your bug report, he noticed that you are actually fixing one-line things, which, I mean, by the way, don't get me wrong, they are important as well, but they are low-hanging fruits. So there are a lot of really high, hairy coconuts that you could be working on, and there are really difficult bugs that you could, that are also interesting, but they will take you more time. So if you pick one of those that is really hard, and it takes you 2 weeks to fix it, don't feel bad about it. The bug is hard, and your manager will understand, and you should understand it as well. So, going back to what I said before, keep yourself balanced. Make sure you're doing things that are actually interesting for you, but are also important for your manager and the customers of your company. So don't focus always in the easiest things just to make more things. Take also care of the really hard things, even if you have to make fewer things at the very end of your progress. And that's it. Hope you liked it.
Okay, we have plenty of time for questions, so go ahead.
And make my day.
Hi. So do you have kids? And if so, has that affected your
I
remote
don't.
working?
I don't have kids. And I was actually thinking about it when I was working on the presentation. I was like, yeah, sure. So I'm here saying that you will be able to sleep more, but wait a minute. If I would have kids, I probably wouldn't be able to do that. So I'm pretty sure there are many things that I'm able to do because I don't have kids that probably people with kids are not actually able to do. But I'm definitely sure that the fact that you have more times in your hand is really useful, not just for you, but also for your kids. Because you will have more time to probably take them to school. I don't know what the workflow of every parent is actually, because I don't have kids. But I'm pretty sure that having more time in your hands is probably useful for you and your kids as well.
Another question, have you had problems with people who assume that because you're home, you're available to go play?
Yeah, definitely. That happens. Actually, that happens a lot, and it happens because I'm working with people that's in the US, and sometimes when it's midnight for me, they are still working. So I start getting pings on IRC. So if you want to stop that, just close your IRC channel. And don't read your emails. I don't have my corporate email address configured in my mobile phone. I don't want it. I just have my calendar because I have a really bad memory and I would forget about every single meeting if I wouldn't. But I don't have my corporate email address configured in my mobile phone because that's a way to just don't check it. Make sure you're not working. And if someone pings you there, they can probably wait until tomorrow when I start working again. Oh, sorry. Yeah, well, no, I haven't had those issues. Probably because. Speaking of friends. So Well, in my case, what I do is like I make sure that I'm always available on IRC when I'm working, and if they need me, they would ping me, and if they ping me and I don't respond, it doesn't. How to say? It's like in our case, we tend to assume good faith. If you're not around, there must be a reason. You're probably either busy or you have something to do, or your manager already knows that. So in my case, for me, it's important that my manager knows what I'm doing. And if I'm not going to be around, I probably will send an email saying, hey, I'm not going to be around, so don't expect me to answer. But no, I haven't had any issue with people assuming that I'm there and thinking that I'm not working at all. And it's all about like, I think it all comes down to the results and keeping your bugs and the stuff you have to do under control.
Just one consideration and a question. The consideration is as a remoter too with kids, I can say that it's incredible quality time that you gain. Like if you have in your coffee breaks or just lunch, it doesn't mean that you are not working the same amount of time. In my case, I probably work more from home, but the time I spend like on lunch, just when they arrive from school or stuff like this is a good time and it's rewarding. So that's my experience. The other one is if you feel alone, start talking with someone alone at home. You can call me.
Awesome.
As a remoter.
I will.
Yeah, we can talk. Last consideration is how you handle very pragmatically technical discussions. Like you don't have a whiteboard, you don't, maybe, I don't know, do you have hangouts or some kind of places that you can do scratches, or maybe I missed the beginning of the talk. Okay.
It's a lot of fun, and I do have a whiteboard. I bought one. It's a like really huge whiteboard, and I put it in my place because I love like scratching things when I have to think about it. Most of the discussions happen on phone. We don't do Hangouts and Skype and none of that. We just talk to the phone. And it's really hard because there are a bunch of issues related to having calls and talking on top of each other and the audio going down and you don't hear whatever they're trying to say, or people not explaining themselves very well, or even yourself, and you probably are not explaining your idea very well. So it's very difficult to have technical discussions on phone. But when you are working on the same thing, and this is why we probably have, it's not probably, this is why we have sub-teams, so very specific teams. And in my team, which is the storage team, we know every single module, so we probably know already what we're talking about. And when we start discussing a new feature, we have the same basis, and it's easier to wrap your head around the idea and what you have to work on. But yeah, it's not easy not being face-to-face in front of people when you're trying to discuss technical things, but somehow you just make it work.
Yeah, in my experience, like written communication especially is sometimes hard because you don't have a set of meta information that you have face-to-face, and sometimes comments may seem like rude or like very direct.
My rule is when I start getting more than 3 questions per second, I just call them. Like when someone sends me 3 questions right away, one right next to the other, I just call them because it will be like very impossible to answer the 3 of them and having threaded conversations on IRC.
Thank you.
One more if you wish.
If allowed, I'd like to play devil's advocate as an ex-remoter who's turned, like ex-smokers are the worst adversaries of smokers. It's that way. Now I am a paladin of the Google way of face-to-face. Why? Well, as a freelance, I typically work 2 or 3 weeks at home and then maybe commuted for a week at the office to like actually interact with people. I observed, that was over 10 years ago, that I was about as productive in that 1 week as in the other 3 weeks, and that's a factor of 3, and life is too short for me to do 1/3 of what I could be doing. Why? It's a combination of factors. Pair programming in a remote way, maybe today it's feasible. I personally doubt it, because so I'd need a computer for the pair programming, the screen sharing, Google Hangout to like be kind of like face-to-face, and when we take a break from the programming, we go get a coffee. I'm getting it in Italy, he's getting it in Sweden. It doesn't really work for the socialization part. It may be just me. I'm an extrovert. I love interacting with people, and there's no interaction like face-to-face interaction. So that's just one example. The whiteboard thingy that I think Fabio was mentioning before is not just about doing stuff for your own on a whiteboard. I actually prefer, for that purpose, a ruled sheet, because I keep the sheet of paper with the weird thing, is for sharing.
Yeah.
There's no, it's like, I draw something and the guy crosses his arms, say, what about we do like this, and so on. And that's so highly productive. You may have heard that when Marissa Mayer left Google and became CEO of Yahoo, after a while she issued an edict, so stop working from home, come to the office, we need to interact. We need the random meeting at the coffee machine. You don't get those.
Yeah, that's right. I couldn't agree more with you on that. And I truly believe that remote working is not meant, it's not like good for everyone, and it's really related to how you are and your own personality. And definitely, if you want to do pair programming, probably remote working is not the best way to go, and you should probably be both in the same place. But I've met people that are not made for working remotely, and they are like, I wouldn't ever be able to be remote because I wouldn't be able to be disciplined and know what to do and what to work on. Other people, well, like yourself, that are extroverts and they want to talk to people, and that's definitely good. I miss that from the office. But the thing is that in my reality, I'm a remote worker, so I have to deal with it somehow and get over it somehow. I've found these, let's say, methods or things that I discovered being remotely like very interesting. But there's definitely like both sides of both sides of the coin, and I couldn't agree more with you on that, actually.
So one option, if you're an extrovert, is to work at hackerspaces.
Yeah, downside is that we don't have many of those, at least in my area. So either I create one and I get some people to come there, or I just deal with it. But I actually met some people here that live in the same area I live in, so we probably will hang out together more often.
Okay, thank you, Flavio.
Thanks.